All right, and we are live. Hello, Bill Meeks. How you doing,
Howdy,
man?
Jason. It's been a second. It has
It
been
has
a
been a
second.
second. I'm trying to think about how long it's been. I mean, I'm thinking like from being kind of stream to stream or face to face as it were. Definitely Twit and probably
Yeah.
NSFW is my guess.
Oh, absolutely. I think the one and only time I met you in person was at the old Twit Brick House.
Yes.
I was there with Brushwood,
Uh
Brian
huh.
Brushwood, because I was going to film his magic show in Indonesia, and we had to stop over there to do NSFW and Cord Killers as it was
Oh
back
my
then. So
goodness. Those
that,
were the days, man.
mm,
NSFW at the brick house. That was chaos, man. It was
yeah,
hilarious.
Padre SJ took me out for In and Out for lunch. It was like a
Excellent.
perfect day. Perfect day.
Excellent. Oh yeah, that was so much fun. Doing that show at the Twit Brick House was a ton of fun, just because
Mhm.
that show, among all others, was like we just don't care. Like we just go. We do whatever we
Yeah.
want here, and it skirts the rules. And it definitely ran into that a couple of times and everything. But
Yeah,
it was always fun.
not too much of a structure, very like willing to try new things and go for a theme, which I
Yeah.
always loved. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Well, it's good to see you. You have been reaching out here and there, and I felt really bad because I've been as a solo, solo creator the last couple of years. Every day is a battle to keep myself afloat with the amount of like inbound and things that need to happen and everything. And I've always had it in the back of my mind, like Bill's doing some really interesting things with
Mhm.
AI. We got to do something sometime. And finally, just kind of figured like, for those who are watching this, like obviously this is the AI Inside channel. It's a channel about the podcast that I do with Jeff Jarvis, but I'm starting to kind of think of the channel in ways that I can use it for other things, all AI related, all related to the AI kind of world. And
Mhm.
what you do with Everly Heights is certainly dialed into that to a degree. And I'm super curious to know kind of like where those lines and those divisions are drawn between human and
Oh,
AI and
the dial is
everything.
constantly being adjusted as
Oh,
the
sure.
climate changes, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure.
Totally. Well, so okay, so I guess maybe we start with just like what Everly Heights is, and I'm going to vamp just a little bit so that I can pull up the landing page for this. But
Totally fair.
it's kind of a storytelling podcast essentially, but you do use AI for certain components. So maybe set the stage of like what Everly Heights is, how you were motivated or inspired to create it, and kind of how long it's been around and that sort of stuff.
Okay, so Everly Heights started as the Hawking Hills project back in 2020. Because
Okay.
I've always been, I wrote plays in college. I've done audio dramas, all sorts of stuff,
Hmm.
screenplays. And I wanted to write a series of screenplays, all dealing with nostalgia kind of as a theme. Like, is nostalgia good or bad? And I thought a good way to do that would be to center all of the stories in the same town and kind of like vary it by genre. So there's like comedies and sci-fi stories and slice of life, 90s punk rock stories. I wrote those and I was trying to figure out ways to get them made. I moved out here to Los Angeles. I thought that would help. Not as much as you
Hmm.
would think. Um,
That's what they
and
say
so,
to do, though. They're like, move out
yeah,
to LA where all the action is.
but I moved out here and I was trying to figure out a way to get maybe one of the pilots made, and probably November of 2022, I think November December, I stumbled across all these posts on Reddit for this thing called Stable Diffusion, which was
Hmm.
a very new sort of image model where you could basically like Chat GPT or whatever, type in a prompt, get an image out of it.
Yeah,
And
now
I
what's
thought,
ChatGPT at this time? I'm trying to get the timeline because I'm trying to remember
yeah,
if I recall ChatGPT existing before my awareness of Stable Diffusion or after.
yeah,
Like what?
Dolly was out and I had used
Okay,
it and I was like,
yeah,
okay, well, I made like Breaking Bad, the animated series, like trying it out. And I was like, okay, well, that's kind of a fun toy, but it's not anything I can do to with intention to
Yeah.
make
Hmm.
something.
Hmm.
And then Stable Diffusion came out. I saw a lot of very I will say lewd ladies pop up on my Reddit front page for a couple of weeks, and I was like, what is Stable Diffusion?
What is this? Yeah.
Yeah, so I started digging into it, and I very quickly realized that yes, it was kind of trained on a
Did
corpus
I
of like
did I not go to the right one?
images
No, I didn't.
images from the wider internet, but you could fine tune it to match your art style or match a character that you created or something like that.
Hmm.
So from a previous project I had that I was going to make for an animated series and swerved at the last minute, I had probably 400 puppets for Adobe Character Animator I had made in Adobe Illustrator laying around on my hard drive. So I took those and
How
I
many of them?
actually
How many did you have? 400, did you
probably
say?
about yeah 3 or 400
Wow.
something like that.
Wow, and you did
Because
those by hand.
I made a huge Illustrator file and I made hands and hairstyles and facial expressions and body types to where I
Wow.
could very quickly make characters for Adobe Character Animator, and then swerve to make it a podcast. But since I had those laying around, I used those with my face photoshopped onto every single character as the initial like training run for fine tuning Stable Diffusion.
Wow.
So
Okay.
yeah, so the first training run was T pose, right? Arms out, character facing the camera, kind of like a basic animation thing. So I got that to where I liked it. It had a really specific style that looked like me, but not quite like me. And I was like, well, wouldn't it be nice if I could just do the full character turnaround so I can bring all those pieces into Character Animator and have a full animated character that can do whatever?
Hmm.
So I spent another couple months building out this huge data set, probably 1,200 or so character sheets, all sorts of things from, characters that I had ideas for from Everly Heights to characters from fiction like the Wicked Witch of the West, stuff like that, and took this huge batch and made the Everly Heights character maker. And that was kind of the basis for the art style of the entire thing. From there, I used bits of that and some other materials to make models that would generate backgrounds and generate prop turnarounds. Like you could take like a clock and get 4 angles of it, and lip sync.
Mm.
I made something where you could give it a head and it would give you all the model or all the phonemes you needed for
Hmm.
animation.
Hmm.
And so kind of really dove deep on that. And for a while, especially as Stable Diffusion and other image models were becoming more popular, found a lot of success with it, found funding, was able to hire a whole cast to do an animated series. And I
And this
think
was not Everly Heights at this point, right? This was still the earlier
oh,
project. Is that right?
sorry, let me back up real quick just to give you. It was Hawking Hills. Hawking
It was
Hills
Hocking
became
Hills.
Everly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Hawking Hills became Everly Heights, but it was really a name change. Hawking Hills started as a town I used in a play I made in college,
Hmm.
and I decided to use it as the location for some screenplays, some spec screenplays and TV pilots I was writing back in 2020. When I decided to take it to a more big professional thing, I was like, well, I can't use the real town of Hawking Hills because it's a state park for one, and for two, everyone knows it. So I found Everly Heights, which roughly means like culture surrounded by the country, and that's kind of like the
Oh, okay.
thematic drive of most of the stories. Is like there's in town where all the artsy people live, surrounded by the rural, hills around the town.
Yeah.
It very much based on where I grew up in Wheeling, West Virginia, where it was like, downtown. That's where the theater was. That's where the music shops were. That's where you could go to see musicians play. But then you could go out in the hills, and there were people running moonshine stills and 4-year-olds smoking cigarettes and everything you can think of about the hillbilly
Sure,
experience.
sure, sure.
So yeah, I always love that sort of contrast. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's cool. Well, and you've created, yeah, in that you've created kind of well, I guess a potent geography of, different stories that, have the potential to relate to each other, different characters
Mhm.
that I imagine kind of cycle themselves in and out of other seemingly unrelated stories? I mean, I'm just kind of making a
Yeah.
guess when you place your entire historical existence inside of a single town, which town
Uh-huh.
kind of makes it also sound a little small, not massive or gigantic, but you know,
Hmm.
there's a lot of interrelated connection that could probably happen from a thematic standpoint.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of the idea for it came from I have a lot of background in improv, both short form and long form. This comes more from like the long form improv idea, where you'll take, two or three suggestions from the audience and you'll build like a whole 3-act structure and narrative in front of people
Mm.
on stage, kind of building off of that. So every project I've done for Everly Heights has sort of built off the last one. Like I started with a very special, which was my sitcom kind of pastiche set in the 90s. From there, I wrote oh, what am I thinking of? Yeah, then I wrote Kids Like Us, which involved some of the characters from Very, Very Special, but it's like this punk rock 1999, we're all punk kids in a small town anthem. And I try and make sure every project is fed by the project I did before it,
Oh,
basically,
okay.
to
Okay.
kind of keep that yes
Keep it
anding kind
grounded
of
and landed.
improv
Yeah.
thing going. Yeah.
I
And
love that.
that can take you wild places. I mean, there are literal witches in Everly Heights. There's a dark troll wizard who is in the punk rock scene, who's from another dimension. And then there's a guy who, very much like me, wants to be a writer, wants to get something made. He writes a story called Dog Boy, a book series I published about 12 years ago.
Uh-huh.
But so there's a wide variety of characters, but every character, every setting, every story comes down to the question: is nostalgia a good thing or a bad thing for this person in this time? Kind of.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay. So that's kind of the background of Everly Heights. And obviously, you know, this being an AI related channel, I know because you've you know reached out to me a few times about this that
Mhm.
AI is a part of your process and probably in a couple of ways. I mean, I'm guessing that maybe you're using AI for some of the artwork
Mhm.
that surrounds it, right? It has a very similar, you know, very cohesive style between the arts, and very, you know, you're talking about nostalgia. It has a nostalgic kind of hue to it, let's say.
Yeah. Well,
But
that's
I
one of the
imagine that's
reasons
not
I.
where it ends. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say that's one of the reasons I at first it made so much sense to me to connect AI to the project, because all the stories are based on nostalgia, and what are all
Yeah.
these AI models if not nostalgia engines, right? Because they're
Mm.
trained on kind of the
The
corpus of all
past.
human, yeah, of all human effort, and
Super true.
that, and then you kind of funnel that out, and that's kind of what I'm doing with the idea of nostalgia and all of the stories too. I'm taking all these little bits, like Nosloo the Great, an upcoming episode of Everly Heights Tales, very much based on Alf, very special, kind of
Based on Alf.
modeled on Family Ties. So I'm taking all these elements of the culture I grew up in and grew up
Yeah.
with, and kind of converging them, much like generative AI does, into something new.
Okay. Well, then, so I'm curious to know kind of like how you're utilizing these different tools to do what you do. And I'm sure, I'm guessing that there's different tools that tackle different parts of the process. I know that
Mhm.
you mentioned the character maker process. That's something we could talk about because you had prepared some things around there. Like, what's the most like what's the thing that you enjoy doing most that has to do with these tools, these kind of advanced AI tools?
Honestly, probably the thing I like the most is using it as sort of a pre-writing tool,
Oh,
because at this
okay.
point, yeah, at this point, I have, probably 1,500 pages of material, if not more, I've written in the Everly Heights universe. And, I have a custom GPT and a custom gem on Gemini set up that I constantly feed the new material into. And so
Oh, okay.
when I'm going to write a story, I might not be able to remember where, I don't know, Zara Special was in 1997, but I can go and ask it, and
Hmm.
it'll give me the answer if it has it. If it makes up an answer, that'll know. That'll know, because I know the stories well enough to know that, no, Zara wasn't in Timbuktu in 1997. She was at the Everly Heights Community Center.
Yeah. How often does it end up hallucinating on facts like that?
A lot less than it used to. Like I was
Good.
I was very reticent to use it for any of the writing process at all, just because I always have loved the writing process and I embrace it and I consider that what I'm best at.
Hmm.
But you know, as it got better and better, I found it to work very much kind of like an improv prompt where, you know, like I said, I'll get an outline from it, I'll take that, I'll type up a full script from it or a full story, and then I'll pass it back through and maybe give it like you can suggest it. You can be like,
Right.
you know, I want a story about these three characters at this setting that deals with this theme and mention Tamagotchis. You don't have to mention tell it to mention Tamagotchis. For some reason, AI loves Tamagotchis. But,
Hmm.
you know, then at the end of the day, you know, I use that as sort of like a jumping off point. And every piece of material that I put out for Everly Heights, I have written by hand, then typed in by hand, then revised by hand many, many times.
Okay.
AI is just basically a quick way to get me started with an idea. I
Sure.
think. Yeah.
Okay, so it's like a launch pad.
Mhm.
You've already. I mean, I love that you're using Gemini. I mean, Gemini has just an incredible context window and the
Mhm.
gems, to be able to create this and continue to iterate on the model because you're continuing to kind of upload your the progression of the information over time into there.
Yeah.
That's a really smart way to do it.
Yeah.
To be
The
sure that
one thing
it's always current.
Yeah, the one thing I don't like about Gemini is they give you like I think a limited number of slots you can use as like your source material. They might have
Oh,
changed
okay.
this in the recent update. I haven't checked yet, but
Yeah.
I got around that by just like merging PDFs in Adobe
Right.
Acrobat and then uploading the merged PDF, and that seems to work okay. So
Yeah, having to do that every once in a while is kind of a bummer, or throwing everything into a single text document or whatever. Yeah,
yeah,
but
a lot
possible.
easier than it would be without it too.
Totally. I think I have to remind myself of that sometimes. I actually just had that. God, was it yesterday or maybe it was even this morning? I can't even keep my days straight. Where I was working with it, and every time I'd have an interaction with this work that I was doing in ChatGPT, and I was using my voice for a lot of it. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, I get to the end of it, I hit send, and then I'm kind of sitting there because it's in the thinking mode, and it takes a minute and a half, which doesn't sound like a lot, but like in that moment, I
Mhm.
was like, man, I'd get so much more done if that was faster. I have to remind myself like what it would be if that didn't even exist at all. It's
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
crazy where we've gotten in such a short amount of time.
Sometimes having to hit generate a few times to get what you want is a lot quicker than it would be otherwise, for sure, for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure. For sure. Cool. Well, what do you want to let's take a look at some of this stuff. I'd love to see kind of what you're talking about, or even hear. I know you've got something on Suno. It sounds like you have used no, have you Suno or Udio?
Suno, yeah,
Suno.
yeah.
Okay.
We can do Suno if you want to. I think I shared my
I
screen with you.
Yeah, you did.
So
Here,
here
I can
I can
remove
set this
mine.
up a little too. So
Hmm.
one of the challenges I set up for myself, Everly Heights has become an audio drama podcast called Everly Heights Tales. I don't think we mentioned that.
Okay.
Available on Apple Podcast and everywhere you get podcasts.
Hmm.
But one of the challenges I set for myself, most of them are, full cast, done the old fashioned way. One of the challenges I set for myself was to take one of the scripts I wrote after I had recorded with the voice artist, pick one and make it a musical. So I did that
Mm.
with my script, The Museum of What Was, which is it's basically a tale about this guy who's been at left town years ago and comes back and contemplates if he should come back or not, and meets all the reasons why he probably shouldn't. So
Yeah.
but to accomplish this, what I did is, I used to have a band, and you can go look this up. Don't, because it embarrasses me. Classic Tragic Hero. I was a band I had with my friend Steve in West Virginia back in the mid 2000s. We had some early success on YouTube, particularly with we called it the white boy rap then, but I'd probably call it something different now. But it was
Yeah.
basically like a mashup of a bunch of different rap songs, like Gorillaz, Clint Eastwood, Bare Naked Ladies,
Okay.
One Week, all that kind of stuff. So I had like probably about an hour and a half worth of material that me and Steve had done over the years. He also helped me a lot with original music for my previous audio drama, The Fakest. So I had
Mhm.
a ton of material. So I took all of that, put it in a huge file, and then basically made a custom style in Suno, Suno AI,
So when
for
you say you
classic
took all
Tragic
that
Hero.
and put it in a single place, like what do you mean? You took all the audio content, or that took all the yeah? How did that look?
Yeah, basically what I just took all of the MP3 files I had of all the classic Tragic Hero music
Okay,
and spliced it together in Adobe Media Encoder into one MP3 file.
got
So
it.
because I found, training models, it's better to have a lot of acceptable than a little of great, because
Yeah,
a little of great
fair.
can overtrain it, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, even those tracks I didn't like, or that live recording at yesterday's where my voice cracked 3 times and I had drama with the girl in the front row during the performance, like we'll take all of that and we'll make that kind of the style. So
Okay.
so I took that, I made that the style. And now what I can do, because I am a musician, like I said, I was in a band, I can sit down and I'll show you this here. I can sit down and I can play a song on guitar and kind of use that as the bass along with I call it classic tragic dude style. You see here. So
Okay.
so I figured for this demo here, I do a theme song for AI Inside, because why not, right? So I sat down, I wrote it on guitar, and here I apologize if you have a dog and they start screaming. This is going to
Yeah.
be
No,
my actual
he's
singing
passed out
voice.
on the carpet. It's
Okay,
cool.
okay. So this is the demo I recorded. A whiff of nostalgia, a little bit of code, a million micro moments rushing down the road. And I probably should have tuned the guitar a little better too. AI inside, surfing the latent space. AI inside, trained on the human race.
Nice.
Training user prompted. I hope we don't all die. We're all powered on the past, on AI inside.
Very nice.
So
Very
yeah,
nice.
that's my crappy version. That's my crappy
Okay.
version.
Wow. And so, okay.
A whiff of nostalgia, a little bit of code, a million micro moments
Wow.
rushing us down the road.
And if you don't know Steve's music, you don't hear Steve's music in that necessarily. Because I have so much experience. Like I knew Steve from the time I was about 14 years old, and
Okay.
knew his musical styles. And he played piano in church, and he was real big into synths and all that kind of stuff. So this sounds like Steve's music. It does.
Interesting. And it sounds like Steve's music because you took that gigantic corpus or that hour and a half of music and trained this particular kind of instance of Sono on that. Is that right?
Exactly. And so,
Okay.
for the musical on the podcast, basically my process was I would write a song, I would sit down and play the crappy demo of it, and then I would find like a good style for it that I liked. And then Suno has a lot of ways you can sort of break up to multi-track, break out the guitar and the drums and the vocals,
Yeah.
and really refine the sound of it. But, basically this is 80% of the work. And then the rest
Wow.
comes down to your knowledge of audio mixing, which I have. I'm a expert novice, I guess you could say. With
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. I hear you on that. I would consider myself something similar. Yeah.
Yeah, but the cool thing is because I trained it all on me and Steve's music. It was all my voice, right? I didn't have any female vocalist, but this is flexible enough that I can actually use the whole engine to do like a female voice too. Like I'll play you this 90s pop princess.
A whiff of nostalgia, a little bit of code, a million micro moments rushing down the road. AI inside.
Oh my goodness.
But see,
That's pretty funny.
it very much adapts to the prompt you give it. Well, again, anyone that I find acceptable, I can hear Steve in. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I have not used the audio generation systems in that way. Like I've used it to collaborate, like throw some music into it and say, give me some ideas for things I can put on top in my song, and then it'll give me ideas and then I'll go and replicate it. But I haven't fed it a bunch of my old music and said, all right, now take this idea and put it into my style. It hasn't even occurred to me to do that. That is really interesting.
Yeah, like I said, you have to do a workaround if you don't want to give it just one song. You have to kind of merge the files together because it'll only let you give it one reference.
Right.
But the nice thing is with the pro plan on this, not to make it a total ad for Suno, but this will break out into stems. So if I wanted to, I could produce the song here. And I actually did this for the last song in our musical episode. We did the Museum of What Was. I can bust it out to stems and then actually lay my vocal down if I want to.
Oh,
like
go back and redo the vocal and
exactly. Just take out the AI vocal and lay my vocal down, or lay my vocal down as like a backing track.
As a musician who has worked with like real, like legitimate in studio, multi tracks and everything recorded through mics and legitimately analog, blah blah blah. When you use Suno to break out the stems, do you notice the kind of like watery AI quality of the stem separation that AI often does? Like in this output specifically, you know what I mean? Has it improved?
Yeah, it can be a little hit and miss. It has gotten a lot better. It definitely has gotten a lot better. And there also is a major problem sometimes when it's breaking out the vocal tracks of artifacting. Like it'll mistake a drum hit for a and so you'll have some weird robotic there in the middle of your
multi-track, and you can etch that out and crossfade
exactly
it whatever.
You can clean it up, no problem.
Interesting. Well, you've given me an idea to explore. I mean, I can't tell. One thing that I've wondered, and actually now I'm realizing I have to do this. I've got all of these old multi-tracks from like high school, right? Had like a little Tascam 4-track recorder. Had all the, and my friend and I, we would record albums, and we'd share them. Like, my albums were always Yellow Gold. His were Fabulous Medicine Men. And we did the best that we could, given the fact that we, were super excited high school kids with a 4-track recorder and, bouncing and everything. I wonder what it would be like to take one of those and feed it my current sound as the model and then say, all right, make this new. Oh,
upgrade it.
I got to do that. Yeah, upgrade it.
You should totally do it. And the nice thing is the breaking out of stems too, it works on tracks that it didn't generate. So you can upload tracks and it'll break out stems for you. I know that there are other services that'll do that, but if you're already paying for Suno, for a month of Suno to try it out, why not use their service, right?
Yeah, no, I would pay for it just to check that out. Might have to do a video on the channel about that. That sounds like a ton of fun. All right, and that's just one way that you're using AI for Everly Heights. And that's really cool. Thank you. I'm getting ideas right now. Let's talk a little bit about the character maker, because I know you even prepped something around this, and I'm super curious to know kind of like the genesis of that, how you kind of iterated the process to come up with what you have.
Oh yeah, well it was about 2 or 3 years, and I think I mentioned before, originally my audio drama The Fakest was going to be an animated series, so I had all these this Illustrator file where I could make a bunch of characters really quickly. So, for Character Maker, I started with that, and it was characters in a T-pose. I trained a model on the T-pose, and then I don't want to undersell how much work went into this, because, I would train the model, and it was kind of crappy, right? Like webbed fingers, and it looked like me, but it looked like a mutant version of me, and all this stuff. So I would spend hours after I trained a model, generating stuff and picking out the 1 out of 20 that I liked and building a new data set. And then, cleaning that up in Photoshop, using my traditional illustration skills, training and retraining until eventually I had it to where it didn't just generate T-poses. It could generate 4 specific poses or a character sheet with those 4 poses and 2 heads.
And you needed to have 4 poses and like all of this variability. Why? Because feeding that into a system, or explain why you need to have multiples.
Oh yeah, basically the goal was to break them up into puppets that I could use in Adobe Character Animator, because Adobe Character Animator will import Photoshop or Illustrator files that are layered with like, left arm, right arm, labeling out all the body parts, all the mouth positions. So I was really looking for a quick way to get a rough draft of a character I could break up to use in Adobe Character Animator.
Got it. Okay. So that was the initial need or intention. And then these tools kind of happen and you suddenly realize like, oh, wait a minute, actually, this could be really useful in a different way. Is that right?
Yeah. Oh, well, in multiple different ways, because, going through that process from taking it from the T pose to where I could prompt a character sheet or 4 specific poses, I was like, these things are very guidable, right? So what else would I need for animation that I would need to guide in that way? So I did the prop generator, which would basically, you could prompt out, a coffee cup, and it would give you 4 views of that coffee cup. So, I was looking for ways, because on a computer GPU or a consumer GPU, this stuff doesn't go quick. The models keep getting bigger, so you have to keep getting more and more powerful equipment. I have it down now between the equipment and where the models are. I can generate an image in about 1.5 minutes, which still isn't great. But you look,
it's a long 1.5 minutes when you're waiting for it, and you're just like, I got to do like 20 of these.
Yeah, and going through that process and putting out different products like the character maker and the set generator and the talk mouth, which would give you all the phonemes you needed for Adobe Character Animator. Yeah. It felt like a really creative process that was really helping creative people, which is, basically what I've been doing my entire creative career. Sure. But as time went on, I will say the money from AI companies who thought what I was doing was cool kind of trickled away, and the tide turned a lot out there. And I think a lot of people were seeing telltale signs of AI in my work and just assuming that it started with AI. And it didn't start with AI. I'm a 20-year, graphic design, video editing, every creative thing you can think of, creative professional. And I just saw AI as a cool tool that might fit thematically with the Everly Heights stuff. So, probably about a year ago, I made the decision, because I was leading like AI so I can do Everly Heights. And I kind of swapped it. Now it's Everly Heights. Oh, and sometimes I use AI a little bit, but don't worry about that. I'm actually doing cool stuff. It's not just shovelware kind of thing.
Sure. Shovelware. Yeah. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. I hear you.
Yeah, okay. And it's tough too, because on the one hand, I believe in the technology from an artistic place. Like, I think it's very well suited to tell the kind of stories I'm trying to tell with Everly Heights. By the same time, I don't want it to be a blocker for people, because my last big creative project I did, The Fakest, which was about a news team that reports the fake news for real. That was done kind of at the height of the fake news thing, and I was working at a news station at the time. It was really about honoring traditional journalism. I didn't want something like fake news being right on the front cover of it to draw people away from the human stories I'm trying to tell with the technology. Sure. Like it did with The Fakest, right? Like I think, honestly, I'm super proud of The Fakest. I think it elevated itself well above that basic premise, that idea of fake news. But I think a lot of people have looked at it and not listened to it because of that, which is a shame, because
fake news.
Because if anything, not to get too political, but The Fakest was really, it was about empathy, which is kind of the opposite of where the corner of the political discourse where the idea of fake news came from. It's about empathy, and it's about being honest with people in your life, so they'll be there for you when you need them.
Yeah, that's a hard one. That's a hard one to come over, because just the term has become so charged and so exhausting, to a lot to it's a hard one to overcome.
Yeah, and when I started working on it, I think it was right before He Who Shall Not Be Named got elected, and so it was just starting to float in the zeitgeist. And then by the time I put 8 or 9 months worth of work into it, it was like everyone was over it. Like I think like maybe about 2 weeks after I started working on it, Comedy Central came up with their fake news show that was going to be, you know, in the style of the Daily Show, but fake news. And they canceled it like very, very quickly. They were like, there is not an appetite for this. Yeah, I was worried about it because I was like, it's going to look like I'm ripping off Comedy Central. And then they canceled it before I got the first episode out. So I was like, well, at least there's that, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. Cool. Well, let's take a look at the character maker. I'm super curious because you shared some shots. You had prepped some shots prior to this live stream. And I don't know, I'm impressed by the layout and the kind of the organization of it all.
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, yeah, if you want to pull some stuff up. Basically, the character maker started as a Stable Diffusion model. And recently, Stable Diffusion, or what's the name of it? Black Forest Labs came out with this editing model called Flux, which is trainable. Okay. So, you know, I have my preset that I worked for years on Everly Heights style. And I was able to train, you know, context models to convert to Everly Heights style, to make character sheets from that. Basically everything I was doing through prompting in traditional Stable Diffusion, I can now feed an image to kind of inspire it. So for this, what I decided to do was I was going to bring you into the Everly Heights universe. So I started...
Apparently so.
I started with your profile picture is sort of the source here, as you can see on the screen. So I fed that into... I'm trying to remember the order I went in. Let's see here.
Let's see here. It's this is step 1. Then I've got step 2 process. Right.
Yeah. So yeah, this is me feeding it through. I have the Everly Heights style lure that I made. And so this is me just basically taking your picture and recreating it in the style of Everly Heights, basically the house style that we talked about, I developed over the years.
Okay. And what is this software that we're looking at?
Oh, this is kind of like the whoa buddy software of Stable Diffusion called ComfyUI. It's a node,
which I've heard of. Okay.
Yeah, it's a node. It's a node-based editing software, and basically versus other software that you can use that's kind of a guided experience with menus and stuff. Yeah. This is basically every piece of technology you're using is a different block, and you can drag these blocks together onto a grid and then connect them up to do what you want. Like if you go back up to the top there, I'll kind of walk through this real quick. Yeah. So basically. Yeah, so basically what this does, it loads the diffusion model, which is Flux Dev Context, the editing model I was talking about. And then right below that is the clip loader. This is sort of all the layers that take your text prompts and your input images and stuff and converts them into the latent space for the model to work with. The VAE also deals with that too. Then, you know, down here at the bottom is the load image, which is the image of Jason that I pulled off his social media. And if you scroll back up a little bit, down here, the clip, text, and code, this is where you put the prompt. Now, I have a standard prompt I use for my Everly Heights style converter lure that I made, which is transform the entire image into the Everly Heights style, and a bunch of other stuff that I found worked really well.
And you iterated on this over time, like manually, or did you use did you collaborate with like an LLM to get it in the right zone, or?
Oh no, this was really just like my prompting I take very seriously. Unless I'm trying to like test a model, I don't use LLMs to write my prompts. I write because, you know, like I said, writing's my thing, right? Yeah. So yeah. But by the same token, a lot of times what an LLM will spit out is what I've found to be good to introduce into the prompt. So
now I'm super curious about this though. So, okay, so you've kind of crafted this over time by hand or by intention and your own creativity and in writing and everything. Did you have a sense, like, did you have a model in your mind of what this actually looked like? And maybe you created it by hand, by which you described your prompt?
Not necessarily. What I did is in Flux Context is very good for this. Basically it trains on image pairs, right? So it'll train on like an image and then an image after the edits have been made, basically. So what I would do is I would take, like, I took a bunch of Everly Heights images that I had laying around, Everly Heights style images. And then I actually used context. I fed them through context and said, convert this into a photorealistic Polaroid, or convert this into, you know, an impressionist art painting. I found that, you know, the more style variation you can get, the stronger the model will be for you. So basically I'm training what I want the result to be. And then when you pass it into the trainer, you'll have the stuff that you made using the Everly Heights images and context and converting it to photo real or whatever. Those will be your source images, like this is what I want to give the model. And then you take those original style images that you made those from, and these are the results I want. So you kind of like, to build a data set for context, you do kind of reverse of what you want context to do. You take things in the style you want and make them in some other style, more or less.
Got it. Okay. I think I'm following for the most part. It's still a little complicated in my fuzzy brain, but okay, cool. Well, I didn't want to take you off the track because you were kind of walking through these. So we've got the
So basically, what that does is now I can take your profile photo or any image in any style and make it look pretty close to Everly Heights until you get something we're happy with, which I think the final result here is.
How did you figure out, like, kind of like when I look at this, I'm like, okay, this is a completely different language. Like, there's a lot of education that needs to happen about, like, what these modules do, what the actual, you know, the digits, the numerical representations of things, what those actually relate to. And I mean, are you guessing here, or guessing in the beginning and then over time it got clear and clarified, or like, how did you learn to do this?
Well, a lot of times when a model comes out, like when Black Forest Labs came out with Flux Context, they'll have some sort of guidance, you know, based on their internal testing, sort of best practices. Yeah. But there's also a lot of testing I do on my own to figure out how it fits into the workflows and how I like to work, right? Yeah. So, you know, anytime a new model like this comes out, I'll spend days testing it, doing making what's called XYZ plots, where you can take a couple of different factors, like say the number of steps in the CFG setting. And I can make, you know, assuming everything else is the same, the seed's the same, what happens if you change these values, and then kind of get it in a big visual grid where you can kind of look at it and kind of evaluate, no, actually CFG 1.5 works better for my use case than 1. Yeah. And then you finally get it fine-tuned, and then you can save out the workflow, so I can just load this up in ComfyUI and run it anytime I need to.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's just kind of plug and play. Here's the image, go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the other models I showed you some samples from work that way too. So I basically, now that we have you in the Everly Heights style, I can show you how far
before we move on, do you find this to be pretty consistent, the output style? Like, you pretty much at this point you consistently get it? Or what is your I was just at a Google Gemini event on Wednesday about Nano Banana Pro, by the way, and in the conversation, the team that created Nano Banana Pro, cherry pick rate, that was a terminology I had never heard, and they were saying that now with the new Nano Banana Pro, the cherry pick rate is a lot better, which means, you know, they can, if they produce 10 images, instead of 2 of them being the kind that they would want to show people, 8 of them are now, you know, that sort of thing. So what's your cherry pick rate on producing this?
Cherry pick rate, you know, yeah, definitely you don't want to make just one, because inevitably there's something going to be wrong with it. Yeah. I tend to start from maybe 15. Like, give me 15 to kind of evaluate. That being said,
it's about a half an hour of churning on that information too, right? With your system.
Exactly. Yeah. But then you can get up, get a cup of coffee or, you know, whatever while it runs. And then you have stuff to work with when you come back to it. That being said, I find, and I don't know if this has something to do with how diffusion models work behind the scenes, but I find it's always the first or the last one, no matter how many you make in a batch. It's always like the first one or the last one. It's either you could have saved the time or you need it every second. There's no in between.
The last one, because by the time you go, oh, that's it, it's always the last one.
Yeah, yeah.
That's funny. Okay, so this is the step 2 of the process, which means we now have the image of me. I appreciate the little gap in the front, even though I don't have one of those gaps. It's got a nice personality to it. I like that.
I think that smooths out as we go down the line. So
Does it? Okay. So
Yeah.
this is step 3 process. So we feed that into the same system or different system.
Same system, different Laura. So this one is based on my character maker that I spent a lot of time talking about making. So basically, that was where you could take a text prompt and feed it in and then spit out a character sheet. I was like, wouldn't it be nice if I had a picture of a character already? I could just feed the picture of the character in and get that character sheet. So that's what this one does. And it'll generally generate out 4 consistent poses. And if you prompt it right, 2 close-ups. And these poses are more than enough to kind of get started building, an Adobe character animator puppet, for example.
Throw that in and start working with it. That is, which is a whole world that I'm not super familiar with, so I'm just guessing. But that's cool.
And another thing I'll use these for is there are things called LoRa's, which are sort of like mini.
Just gonna ask.
Yeah, mini models you can tack onto a bigger model, like the Flux model, which is what I use, or SDXL, whatever you want to use, to basically, do something consistently, either a style or a character. So what I use this for a lot now, if I have a specific character I want to have a character Laura for, I'll use this to make the character Laura. So I'll have the character sheet, which you see here. I'll feed that as one image, and then I'll break it up into 4 to 8 other images where I'll basically do a rough Photoshop over a background in the Everly Heights style, just to give it a variety. And then I'll actually use context for the last step. And if you want to go to the last step here, I'll feed in the character sheet as context to create a grid of images of the character doing a whole bunch of different things. A grid of, this is 16 images of the character from the character sheet doing various things. They're not all perfect. Some of them are kind of futzy, and I do use a AI upscale before I break these out to put them into a data set. But it very quickly allows you to get 30 or 40 images to train your character model on, so that when you have that model, you can generate that character in a variety of circumstances, styles, moods, poses, and it has a lot of source information to work from.
Wow. And each of these, so is this a single image that it's giving you here? It is?
That is a single image. And then what I would do with that to kind of take it over home plate, I would upscale it to super duper big and then make each of those like either a 768 by 768 or 1024 by 1024 image.
And when you upscale these smaller images to a super, super big, does it retain the kind of look mostly of like the facial kind of, the look of the face on the earlier models? Like, does it kind of retain that character quality?
Absolutely. Nice. And I use sometimes I'll use traditional, just make it biggerize it in Photoshop. Other times I'll use more advanced stuff like the Topaz Gigapixel Suite.
Yeah.
I find works really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they've actually built that into Photoshop now. So I actually don't even have to run it on my GPU anymore. Like I use Photoshop and it just sends it over to Adobe. They upscale it and then send it back. So it's nice. I don't have to spin it. I don't have to spin up my graphics card for it.
That's nice. That's really nice. And do you get unlimited upscales with a CC account?
There has been some talk of some sort of limit, but I've never hit it.
You never hit it. There you go. That's all that matters. Okay, cool. So then we've got this final image, and that's pretty awesome. Here I'm holding a door.
Yeah, maybe. I forget what the prompt for that frame is. But yeah, it looks like or maybe an oil pan for a car since there's a wheel back there.
Oh, yeah, maybe so. So every time you do this character sheet, is it all the same kind of prompts driving the same kind of output, and that just becomes a consistent kind of variety?
I have a very, very complex prompt. I think it's about 1,200 characters, and it has very specific things like kneeling down in front of a sunset, in front of a psychedelic background, things like that. And if I want to, for specific characters, if it's, a fireman, I might go change those prompts to be more fireman-y things. Not that it's really needed, because the whole point of this is to get the character in a wide variety of situations, so the model has flexibility for you. So you don't have to prompt a guy kneeling down with his thumb up. You can move beyond that, and have the character standing up with his thumb up or with another finger up, whatever you want.
it'll have a better sense of how to interpolate between the different poses or needs of the prompts that come down the line, I guess.
Exactly, because like all diffusion models, all they're looking for is like the average of an idea as it connects to the text representation of the idea. Right. I think is probably a good way to say it. There's a couple like layers of translation in between there, but yeah.
Okay, really cool. This is so outside of anything that I've done in AI as far as connecting all these things. When I look at something like this, I'm like, oh, it's modular. Like that's probably easy to figure out. But then when I dive in, it's just like there's so much detail in there that. Yeah, I mean, I guess it just takes time to really get comfortable with why you do these things. When you were talking about different LoRa's that you bring in for different applications, those are LoRa's that the community has created and you've imported in to use, or combination of those and ones you've created, or what does that look like?
When I'm trying to build a varied data set, sometimes I'll pull in community LoRa's and use those just so it's not so strictly adhering to my style. Yeah. But for the most part, I use mine. Like if I'm going to use something for specifically Everly Heights, I'm going to build it from the ground up, because that it's kind of creative and fun for me too, right?
Sure. Oh, that's so fascinating. Right on. Anything else you want to share? I know we've been going for almost an hour, so we should probably wrap it up here pretty soon. But I'm just curious, like, is there an obscure tool that you rely on that you don't hear people talking about that you really like?
Let me think here.
I mean, and that doesn't have to be the question that you answer. It's just the one that came to my head. But like, is there some part of the process that you're like, oh, this is actually really cool?
Something I haven't been mentioning, mainly because for the most part, Everly Heights Tales is all natural voice actors. So I don't mention it a ton, but on occasion, like I do a lot of impressions. I can do voices and stuff like that. Sometimes, unless I'm kind of locked in and doing it consistently over a period of time and well rehearsed, I can't do it for a long period of time, which is harmful a little bit when you're trying to build out the reality of a character over, a half-hour episode. So on occasion, what I'll do is I'll use Elevenlabs, and what I'll do is I'll record, like, I think for Ricky Special, the character Ricky Special from Welcome Freshman, I did my best 10 minutes of a Michael J. Fox impression, since the character is based on Michael J. Fox. Trimmed it down to the 5 that was actually okay, and then used that to train a voice-to-voice model in Elevenlabs, to where I can go through, I can record all of the Ricky Special lines, using my tonality, my phrasing, and then run that wave file through the Ricky Special filter, which is also based on my voice, to kind of have a very consistent sounding character, and I don't have to worry about making sure he sounds consistent from one episode to another, because the AI can kind of hammer that out for me while keeping the humanity and the artsy fartsy of it,
Yeah, that's so cool. Super creative. Yeah, it's interesting. Are you using a Mac or a PC? Like, have you built out a PC for this? Do you find that?
Yeah, built out a PC. It started as a Lenovo desktop, which wasn't super powerful. Now it's like really decked out. I have a 3090 in it. I know that's a little old, but it's still pretty beefy.
Yeah.
Like 200 some gigabytes of RAM, couple SSDs, a lot of cooling.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Got it. Wow, that's so cool, Bill. I'm so happy that you got to kind of show me part of the process, and
it was fun, Jason, honestly, to come in here and talk about this side of the process, because of the pushback I got a little bit,
sure,
or that developed around AI. this is kind of the process I've been keeping under the hood. You know, I save it for the after show in the podcast, in the Everly Heights Tales podcast. You know, I'll give you a half-hour story, and then here's a couple minutes about how I used AI, maybe, you know, if you want to listen to it. But everyone skips out anyway, so hopefully it won't turn people off of the show.
I mean, you know, there are just the people who any mention of AI or, oh, AI was involved in any way, shape, or form, and I'll go ahead and throw that in air quotes because there's so much AI in so many things and has been for many years. It's just this like modern moment where there is just a contingent of people, and I can understand the perspective where if the sniff test tells them there was AI involved in any way, shape, or form, I'm out. You know, I bounce. And I mean, at the end of the day, you know, my perspective is on this is I can understand the hesitation. At the same time, like this is just an extension and expansion of technology tools that we've used for decades now. And there's always been expansions of these tools because at the end of the day, they're just tools to do new things or to do the same things but better or more efficiently or, you know, and that's just where we're at with a lot of this. Yet at the same time, I can understand, you know, the devaluing aspect, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's complicated.
It's a bit of the modern video killed the radio star a little bit, but you know, this has happened in the creative industries. Like Photoshop was a big deal. People didn't like it, you know, back in the day. You know, personally, I have to kind of make sure that I'm coming at this from an ethical perspective at all times because my kids are so, like I have 3 teenagers in high school and all 3 of them are vehemently against this technology. Like they're all, you know, art students and they see it as a thieving model, not a creative model, but like a model that reaches in and takes away their creativity and their opportunities. And that I think has been a really good thing in my life, actually, to ground me because, you know, we're always going to disagree, but if I can explain my side of it to them and they can walk away without thinking I'm a total bastard, sorry for the language, but, you know, then maybe I'm probably doing it the right way. Maybe, hopefully, you know, if I can get someone who's against it to at least not hate me for it.
I mean, we're also in a real early stage of this too. And I mean, I imagine things get better as there's more of a comfort that kind of comes in. I don't know. It's so complicated because I mean, you and I, like, I see that we are very similar, particularly in the kind of creative aspects of our lives, right? Like I've always been a creative person. I enjoy creating things. I enjoy writing music and producing music and everything. And I'm also excited about the potential of new tools like these tools to give me more abilities that I didn't have before, or open doors that I didn't have before, or use my capabilities in combination with these things to do. And I also recognize that, like, the more AI generated art or music or whatever is out there, the more that devalues the art that is made by people. Maybe not just from volume, but just from the sheer fact that, and this was brought up to me on Wednesday. I had a conversation with someone who has made a really like great Instagram career out of using AI. At least part of her process is using AI to create kind of character and scene and stuff like that, like you were doing. But then she animates it by hand. So then she prints it out. You know, it has a whole like setup where she kind of animates this stuff by hand. And, you know, so her livelihood is now growing around this, even though prior to the AI tools, her livelihood was the art itself. And now she's using the tools to kind of modernize. But she's like, but I can't really tell people that AI is part of this process because it's the steel door that shuts down. And she said, the problem that I have with this, as much as I'm a part of it, is that now anytime anyone sees art, they question whether it's AI or whether it's real. And she said, that's the devaluing that I don't like. And I was like, I hadn't really thought about that before. The doubting that it actually was done by a real person when it was done by a real person, you know, that sucks.
Yeah. The thing is, a lot of people like me, like your friend you're talking about, you know, who are using these tools, they're traditional creatives. And, I think a lot of people are using it to break down the biggest barrier creative people have to getting something done, and that's getting started. Like
Yeah.
I mean, I think so many creative people, it's getting that first foot out, and AI is really good at helping you get that first foot out, and maybe the second. After that, you still have to run the race. You still have to pull in all of your skill sets that you've built over your entire career to touch things up and make them not AI and make them honor your intentions. Like, like AI is a good first step. The people who are giving it a bad name are the people who use it as the last step, the first and the last step.
Yeah, or the only step, you know.
Yeah,
put in
exactly.
some words
exactly.
and it gave me something and great. You know, it's like the first time I I showed my wife or the first time that my wife kind of opened up to like, oh, I guess I could use ChatGPT for this. Meanwhile, I'd been using it for a while and I showed it to her. And, you know, I was like, just put in this prompt. And then it gave her something. And she's like, oh my God, that's what I wanted to say. I can use that. And I was like, okay, that's the starting point. Don't use this because people can sniff it out. They know at this point. Like, we're very skilled at like understanding when these things aren't quite human enough, you know? And so there's a little bit of a back and forth. It's a collaborative experience. And that's how I always see these tools as being the real strength and the way that I enjoy using them is, you know, it's because I'm sitting here. I'm sure maybe it's the same for you. I'm sitting here in a room with a microphone. I don't have like someone who shares the room with me while I work to like bounce ideas off of. And
yeah, exactly.
The collaborative process of using these tools has been really inspiring to me.
Yeah, sometimes it's good just to have something to break you off in a different direction.
Yeah,
you know,
force you to rethink it or whatever, think of it differently. Yeah.
Yeah, I think of a lot of the generative AI output that I get as an improv prompt. You know, that's where I start. That's just kind of like a seed for me to grow something out of. You know, like never use it as the end all be all. Never.
Yeah. Indeed. Well, Bill, this has been a lot of fun. I'm so happy we could finally do this, and hopefully people see it on the channel. It's very different from what I normally do on this channel. But, you know, we've got the channel. We might as well try some new things. And, we'll see if we can get some new people to subscribe to the podcast. And let's see here. The site is everlyheights.tv. But what do you want to leave people with? What do you want to direct them to as far as the work that you're doing here?
Well, as always, Jason, it's got to be the new hotness, right? Everly Heights Tales is an audio drama. Lots of stories set in Everly Heights, all acted by real people for the most part, all written by a real person with a little bit of AI assistant, all dealing with that idea, is nostalgia a good thing or a bad thing, in a town that is constantly pulling you back every time you try to leave.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Cool. And so they can find that in their podcatcher. Just look for Everly Heights Tales.
Everly Heights Tales, or it's everlyheights.tv/Everly Heights Tales.
There you go. Right on. Hey, Bill, this is a ton of fun. Thank you so much. And we've been like dancing around each other on DTNS as well, Tom Merritt's podcast, Daily Tech News Show. Every once in a while when I'm hosting with Tom or with Win or someone else, suddenly there you are in the story in the middle of the show. I'm like, God, I need to get in touch with that guy and see what's up. So thank you.
And now you have. And now you know my email still works. So anytime you need someone to talk knowledgeably about this stuff or unknowledgeably, I'm more than happy to do that too. I can do a cold 20 minutes on stuff I know nothing about. No problem.
Right on. Bill, thank you. It's been a pleasure and it's been a ton of fun. And everybody go check out Everly Heights Tales. We'll see y'all soon.
Jason.
Thanks for watching. Bye.